specification and codes may be revised or updated over time with newer versions, often incorporating improvements. I read some of this out yesterday from my phone. However, both the previous and the latest standards reflect acceptable construction practice and maintain high quality standards. Design errors identified in earlier versions have been addressed as part of the normal process. It is the nature of such complex schemes that ongoing revisions of both costs and timelines are entirely appropriate. And the last sentence, and I will give you a copy of this: the state-of-the-art terminal embodies a vision for a modern, world-class facility that meets the highest expectations of the people of Tobago. We are committed to delivering a project that stands as a benchmark for quality and professionalism. So that's GLEADS, which is the Ministry of Finance review oversight consultants. I also have a letter from the chairman of NIDCO, Mr. Herbert George. Two letters actually, which I will share with you. And the first letter deals with the same matter of the applicable building codes and standards. And Mr. George has written me to tell me today, the National Infrastructure Development Company, NIDCO, confirms: 1, use of international design standards. The following design codes and standards were used in the design of the structural elements of the project, and they go through to list all of them: International Building Code, Structural Engineering Institute, American Society of Civil Engineers, Building Code requirements for structural concrete, American Concrete Institute, Precast Pre-Stressed Concrete Institute, seismic provisions for structural steel buildings, specification for structural steel buildings, building codes, requirements for masonry structures. 2, satisfactory completion of 100% designs in accordance with design standards. And let me explain that. The contractor is responsible for both the design and construction of the building. However, the employer, NIDCO, has to accept the design, and the employer, NIDCO, would have engaged several different consulting firms, structural engineers, over the period of the project from 2020 coming up. And those structural engineers would have confirmed to NIDCO whether the design was in compliance with the appropriate international standards or not, as the case may be. So the second point in this letter, the 100% structural designs fill the requirements of the above mentioned design codes and standards. I just read out all the codes. As a result, non-objection was provided by the employer, NIDCO, design reviewer, KS&P. And they refer to a confirmatory letter from KS&P dated 6 September 2024. 3, compliance of construction at 100% designs. Ensuring compliance with construction in accordance with approved designs is undertaken daily by the employer's FIDIC engineer, Acutus. In so doing, inspections and tests are carried out in accordance with the approved quality assurance methodology. Repairs to non-conformities at any stage of construction are undertaken before progressing to any advanced stage. So that is a letter from NIDCO confirming that the terminal building was designed and is being built in accordance with the highest international standards for a building of that nature. Here we have the attachment to that letter from KS&P Consulting Structural Civil Engineers. And this is written to the President of the National Infrastructure Development Company, Ms. Farmer, 6 December. Please be advised the design review process for the 3 buildings, which form part of the ANR Robinson International Airport facility, was based on the following design codes: International Building Code, minimum design loads for buildings and other structures, and they go through and list a whole set of codes: structural concrete, specification for structural steel buildings, seismic specification, pre-qualified connections for special moment frames, for seismic applications, building codes and requirements for masonry structures, and so on and so on. Structural drawings and calculations for the buildings were reviewed during the period of October 2023 to January 2024. And they go on to talk about all of the documents that form part of the final review process. And they confirm that as the structural engineering review consultants, they issued a non-objection, which is, in other words, they are satisfied with the design. On the 30th of November, for building A, the terminal building has three parts, A, B, and C. A is the largest building that you would see in the photographs. And then building B, they issued a non-objection after reviewing the calculation report, structural design calculation, structural drawings, etc. They issued a non-objection to building B design on the 31st of January 2024. And then building C, they go through again the process, calculation report, structural design calculations, etc. And they say they issued a non-objection for building C on the 12th of December 2023. And then they go to the metal roof system. Again, they list all of the items that they review, the metal roofing work, the drawings, etc. And they issued an non-objection on the 26th of January 2024. Structural drawings were stamped, non-objection, and issued on 6th February 2024. So that is the attachment that goes to the letter from NIDCO confirming that the building has been designed and is being built in accordance with the highest standards. Now let me move on to a question that was posed to me yesterday, and you have to remember, as Minister of Finance, or as the Ministry of Finance, we are responsible for financing this project. But the project is being managed by the National Infrastructure Development Company as the employer. And therefore, when that question was posed to me yesterday, I could say with certainty that the allegation that CEP Limited was fired because they refused to rubber stamp inadequate designs was a false allegation. I was able to say that. I was able to also say, I think in response to something Kijan said, that their contract came to an end. So I have now got the details on that, and I'll give you this letter as well. So this is another letter written by the chairman of NIDCO, and it speaks to revision of structural designs that led to the contractor's claim for an extra payment. And it says, the contract is based on the FIDIC conditions of contract for turnkey projects, in which the contractor is totally responsible for all designs. Designs were to be done in accordance with agreed international codes and in satisfaction of the employer's requirements, employer being NIDCO. The contract also allowed the employer to review the contractor's designs and to give its non-objection to the design before they are issued for construction. The employer retained the services of competent and experienced subject area experts for the review of civil work designs, structural designs, MEP, mechanical, electrical designs, equipment selection, and so on. CEP was one such consulting company engaged to, inter alia, review the structural and civil designs. The contractor, using a fast-track approach, submitted structural designs for building A. The entire building was segmentalized into three sections, as I just said, A, B, and C. CEP gave its non-objection, along with some items to be addressed by the contractor before proceeding to construction. After the contractor had addressed the items, approval to proceed was given to the contractor. CEP's contract ended, and we were unable to agree on a contract price for its renewal. We therefore did not renew the contract. What I'm told with respect to that comment there is that CEP's contract was for a particular period of time to provide this design review service for a particular period. And because the project was delayed due to COVID and also land acquisition, which I'm going to come to in a short while, CEP's contract came to an end, and I'm told by NIDCO that the price that they asked for to continue was very high, and NIDCO was unable to agree on it. They found it much too high. So after that, we retained the services of Aaron Bush and Associates Limited, followed by KS&P for structural review, and ENCO for MEP. By that time, the contractor had completed the foundations for building A, it's water, and was well advanced with those for building B. Additionally, they had completed the fabrication of building A. And was well advanced for those for building B. Additionally, they had completed the fabrication of building A and were doing the installation of steel. The 90% structural designs were submitted for buildings B and C. The new reviewer, Aaron Bush, considered the designs and concluded the structure was too flexible and needed to be reinforced, especially due to the extensive curtain wall height of building to the roof. Excuse me a second. The waveform profile of the roof covering, extensive eave overhang of 4 meters, and the tall masonry walls that were shown sitting on the floor. He recommended, excuse me, that use be made of the relevant provisions of ASC 716, and at the very least, the contractor should revert to using the previously presented design approach. Given the employer's issuing of the non-objection for building A and for the foundations of building A and B, those elements had now to be retrofitted. The employer agreed to compensate the contractor for these works. Designs of building B and C, having not yet started, were done in accordance with the new approach. We confirm that what has been constructed has been done in accordance with the specified international codes. Excuse me one second. So I'm now going to pass this out to you. Here you go. Okay, here we go. Four buses. Nice. Oops. Now, let me deal with the other things. When I look at this, I see a number of 261. So the Express is alleging that the Ministry of Finance sold 261.1 million for the airport. So I couldn't understand that figure. So when I looked at the article written by you, Mr. Abdas, you have double counted the 14 million US in provisional sums and contingencies is part of the original 128. It's not extra. The other thing I would like to point out is that the 261 also includes additional costs for consultants. When I spoke yesterday, I spoke only about the construction contract. So the 128.7 million US dollars figure that I used is only for the construction contract. I did not speak to the consultants at all. As you will have heard and you will see from those letters, NIDCO did engage additional engineers, Aaron Bush, KS&P, etc., after CEP's contract came to an end. So when you go to the cabinet note, which is published or extracts of it published in the Express, what the Express has done to get that 261.1 million is to add the 14 million US to to another number of 15 million US, and then adding the cost for additional consultants for Accutests and an specialized airport consultant, Zabir, and also added in a contingency that we had asked Cabinet for of US $5 million and an additional $10 million for NIDCO's project management fees, which naturally would have to increase because the project was delayed. What the Express did not do, and I assume you have all the documents, is point out that whereas the cost of consultancy has increased, NIDCO's fees have increased because of the amount of time on the project, because of delays for two reasons, land acquisition and COVID. So NIDCO's cost as the employer with its staff on site obviously had to go up. And then after CP's contract came to an end and Accutests came in, obviously they have to be paid. So what the Express has done is added the 10 million for NIDCO's project management fees, 11 million for Accutests, the US 776, which is about, if I have to guess, what's that, about 5 million, for the expert airport technical advisor who was really engaged to ensure that the airport is commissioned properly. Zabir is a consultant that deals with the operations of the airport. So all of these consultants are required, but they are not part of the construction cost. The other thing the Express did not do, and as I said, I'm pretty sure you have all of the documents, is you did not go into the document dealing with land acquisition. You see, we've saved $50 million. So we have an allowance of $300 million for land acquisition, but payments to date, $251. So if you subtract the 10 million for NIDCO and the 11 million for Accutests and the 5 million for Zabir, you still wouldn't reach the savings we've achieved on land acquisition. So you have to be very clear about what you're publishing. And really, it is in the interest of full transparency that I've come here to deal with any issues that may arise. I've tried to figure out the reference to the 338 million that Leeds is said to have indicated would be the money required. I've tried to figure out what that is all about. And what I realize is that that is pulled from a page. Now you have to understand, yesterday, not you, Ms. Ramdas, but other people were waving reports at me, and they couldn't put a date on it. So I had no idea exactly what I was being asked to comment on. And I am always very careful. I don't like to talk out of turn. So having now seen that the Cabinet notice published in the Express, I've gone and got all the appendices. And it appears to me that what has been done by the opposition leader and repeated by the Express is to look at a particular page in the Leeds report which gives the required cash flow on the project for November, December, January, February, going up to March. And when you add up all of that, you get about $348 million. So I assume that's where the 338 came from. But that does not take into account the fact that we still have to, within the original contract sum, there's still an amount of $282 million. So one has to be very careful when you're reading all of these things, and not to fall into the trap of falling prey to allegations made by the opposition, because one would know that they are going to go out of their way to scandalize this whole thing. So if you take away the $281 million from the 338, you will see it's a much lower figure, and included in this was an estimate on the part of Bleed's part of 12 million US for settlement of claims. So you have to back that out as well. So that's where that 338 came from. It's already covered in the cost of the project. Let me go now to the delays, because what I'm seeing in the appendices is that the employer, NIDCO, is in the process of holding discussions with the contractor with respect to claims. I was asked yesterday by Ms. Ramdas about the claims. I didn't have full information about any claims at that point in time, so I told her that I was not in a position to respond to that, but I can respond today. What I'm advised is the contractor has put in claims that total approximately $204 million, and that those claims are being adjudicated at this point in time. But one of the claims is for delay in possession of site, and I would like to carry you back to, oh, by the way, there's something else I need to give the media. The contractor also hired a very well-established engineering firm called WSP International to be its review consultant. And I have with me the design sign-off from WSP. So you can have that as well. Sure. All right, so this document I've just given you is the review of the contractor's design by its independent engineering firm, which is a requirement of the contract. Now, this independent engineering firm, WSP, which if you Google them, you will see it's a huge firm. It's also over 100 years old and has thousands of employees all over the world and has been engaged in engineering for, as I said, over 100 years. But you can Google them yourself. You see at the top there, WSP Caribbean Limited, okay, which is a branch of WSP. So that's what I've given you. So the way this thing worked is the contractor has his own independent engineering firm which would produce the designs in accordance with the international standards. Those designs would be checked off by WSP and they would say no objection. That is then sent to NIDCO, who would then use its own consulting engineers to verify the documents sent to them. So there are a number of checks and balances in this project to ensure that the project is designed to the highest international standards. First, you have WSP checking to see what China Railway is coming up with, and then NIDCO and KSNP and Aaron Bush and so on checking what China Railway and WSP have submitted to them. So I've given you everything. So let me go back to something that I did not speak about yesterday, because I didn't want to talk out of turn and I didn't want to say things that were inaccurate. But I'll carry you back to several years ago. When we started the project, the first thing we had to do was land acquisition. And I want to remind the media and the public, and really I'm presenting all of this for the public because I want to be as transparent as I possibly can be. And if I take you back to various stories that were published in the Express itself and the Newsday and the Guardian and so on, there was a confirmation. So this is Newsday, 11th of August 2022. I'm seeing the byline will be Corey Connolly. And the headline is "Eviction Stopped as THA Backs Residents in Clash Over Airport Land." And in this story in the Newsday, there was a story about a clash between the contractors who were coming to take possession of land for the airport and the residents. And there's a line here. Most of the THA secretaries and assemblymen, including Kenan Bonacord, Representative Joel Sampson, are also on hand to support the residents. Now, the whole point is, if you go and review this matter, you will see a reference. I'll go to Trinidad Express. Way cleared for Crown Point project to continue. September 11, 2022. And that was an article by Camille Hunt and Leah Sorayas. And in that, there was a statement that the state had previously said it loses $5 million each month that the expansion project is delayed. So due to the agitation in Tobago and due to the actions of the Tobago House of Assembly, when we were acquiring the land for this project, we were losing $5 million a month. And that high court action where you had prominent attorneys associated with the DHA, the new DHA I'm talking about, and the DHA itself removing access or blocking access to the site, going with their own equipment and interfering with the construction site and so on. That was costing us $5 million a month. So that part of the claims that have come in from the contractor are the whole question of delays in the acquisition of site because they simply were not allowed to get the site in order to complete the project. So what NICO has indicated is that they are of the view that the project was delayed for 290 days as a result of all that agitation in Tobago. So 290 days, that will be about 9 months, I guess. A little over 9 months, so you can do the maths. It is $5 million a month. So that's part of a claim coming in from the contractor for not being able to access his site. So I think I'll stop now and answer any questions that you have.
Where to begin? Okay. Mr. Imbert, Kijan Haynes, Guardian Media. What I'm trying to understand is, now according to you referenced the cabinet note, I'm assuming it's a cabinet note that the Express would have published today. There is a section 17 or point 17, I don't know if you have it in front of you that you could refer to, that does speak to some variations and payments that need to be made. Part of those, and that payment of variations comes up to about $14.2 million.
Yes, but the reference
so I'm trying to understand what
that's the same 14 million I spoke about yesterday.
Yes, so explain, but when you also raised the issue of overruns yesterday, you put it at US 2.5 million, right?
The point I made was that if you actually look in it, you'll see that all payments for variations categorized as approved, instructed, and anticipated, totaling approximately US 40.2 million, be paid to CRCCL from the contingency and provisional, totaling 11.7 million, and the balance of approximately 2.5 million from the Ministry of Finance budget application. So that 11.7 is part of the original 128.
Right, and so that my question is, the reason why you would have said that the overruns were only US 2.5, is that because it came from the Ministry of Finance budgetary allocations? Is that how I'm reading it?
No. On any construction project, a contractor will make claims. The engineer has to determine the claims, so that the engineer had determined that they had approved, instructed, or anticipated variations totaling $14.2 million US.
Right.
And the provision in the contract for that kind of thing was $11.7 million. So the difference was 2.5.
And then which would have come from?
Well, it has to be financed. We are financing the project, yeah.
Now, and that's what I'm trying to find out. So is that what you meant when you said yesterday that the overruns were only totaling about $2.5 million as opposed to?
I did not say that. I said, you have what I wrote. I said what has been told to me as agreed is $14.2 million US.
No, but yesterday because the headline, if you look at the front page of the Guardian, it says, Imbert says overruns only 2.5 million.
I can't be responsible for what you publish in the Guardian.
Well, but you haven't complained about it, so which makes me wonder if we didn't get it wrong.
Mr. Haynes.
So I'm just trying to understand the 2.5 million.
Can I be allowed to speak?
Sure, sorry.
I am not complaining. I can't be responsible for what is written in the newspapers. My job is to explain what is going on and to provide the transparency that is required of us and has been demanded of us. So that's what I'm doing. That reference yesterday to 2.5 million US is in the context of this part of the cabinet note, which says that all payments for variations that are categorized as approved, instructed, and anticipated, totaling US 14.2, be paid to CRC from the contingency and provisional, totaling 11.7 million, and the balance of approximately 2.5 million from the Ministry of Finance budgetary allocation. That is what I was referring to.
So I think, yes, I think we're saying the same thing. I think
No,
we're saying
but
the same thing.
no, let me make this crystal clear. On any project, our contractor will make claims. Any project. It is only when claims are approved or determined that you know what the number is. Ms. Ramdas asked me about claims, and I told her I was not familiar with the claims. Okay? So that's why I refer to what I know, which is that the contingency and provisional, the increase on top of what is provided in the contract was 2.5 million. So that's what I know.
So in the interest of making this easy and more palatable for the public, let's simply, what was approved in the cabinet, this cabinet note, what was approved in terms of finances, unforeseen finances? So we would have budgeted a certain amount, but clearly there are some unforeseen, which means that we are overrun in some way. Exactly how much was budgeted for those overruns?
The approval sought is for 2.5 million US. And for the 5 million for other unforeseen costs, that's just a provision, 5 million US. An assessment of NIDCO's claims, NIDCO's claims assessment, US 15 million, 10 million TT to cover NIDCO's project management fees, 1.8 million to ACQ, of the remaining balance of the 300 million Scotiabank loan, which I've just indicated has 49 million in it, and 11.5 million for Aquitos, and 776 million US for Zambia. But you can't add the 14 and the 15. Follow?
Because the
It's already in there, so you had to add 2.5 and 15. Follow? And then you had to take away the savings on the land acquisition.
So in your estimation, what
I can't make an estimate right now.
if we do the math, the cost overruns, because I think this is where a lot of the contention is.
All right, let me make it
how much are you thinking are the cost overruns?
I don't want to think. This is what has been told to me.
Yes.
That there is an increase in the provisional and contingency amounts of 2.5 million US dollars. Okay? The 5 million US is a provision. So that hasn't been spent.
Okay.
There is a US 15 million that it is recommended that that be advanced to the contractor while the claims are being negotiated. Okay?
That's been approved?
Yes.
Okay.
But that is not a settlement of claims, it's simply an advance. Okay? And my understanding is that based on legal advice, the contractor was informed that that is simply an advance pending settlement of the claims. Okay? And then there is 10 million for NIDCO's project management fees, 1.8 million to ACQ, which I mentioned just now, 11.5 million for the former oversight and supervision engineer, and that is already within our budgetary allocation. You got that?
Mm-hmm.
That's already in our budgetary allocation. And then 776 million US for Zabir, which is being funded by the budgetary allocation.
Funded under the ministry's infrastructure development fund, right? That's my understanding from, okay.
But you see, if you want to figure out what the cost is, I was dealing only with the construction cost. If you want to see the whole cost of the project, you have to add the land acquisition, the consultancy fees, construction costs, etc.
And if you add all of those things up, which I did, I'm getting a number of 260 million, is not, and which is what I talking about everything that is in that cabinet note. I added it up, and I got 260 million TT. So are we on the same page with that?
I'm afraid not. I mean, you want me to do the calculations now, Mr. Haynes? I don't think I can do that.
But that was more in line with what I'm seeing in the Express reporting, which the numbers add up. So if we add up everything, so we're talking variations, project risks, consolidated claims, lump sum for NIDCO, outstanding ACQ and Associates, contract award for Acuitas, extension of Zabir, all of these added together, 260 million.
Are you sure you're doing that correctly? But anyhow, I mean, that's easy to do.
I'll be 100% honest with you. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm mostly sure.
That's easy to work out.
So, and I guess the confusion is still there because we're kind of battling over semantics a little bit in terms of how much the overruns are, the cost overruns versus how much we would have originally budgeted. But
the NIDCO has recommended that the contractor be advanced the sum of 15 million US pending the settlement of the claims.
yeah, I have that.
That's 102. You got that?
Mm-hmm.
Then that's part of the construction cost. Then an additional 2.5 million US. That takes to 119.
That's in the variations.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But that's it. Everything else is consultancy fees and so on. And it certainly does not come up to $140
But do you consider those
million? No, honestly.
But do you consider those overruns? That's what I'm asking.
Mr. Haynes, you throw some numbers at me. And I'm trying my best to deal with the numbers you're throwing out at me. But if the advance on the claims is 102, and if the overage, let's use it that, on the provisional sums and contingency is 16 or 17.
I don't think I'm adding that. I think I'm adding the 14 million for the variations. So only the 2.5.
Yeah, I told you not to do that.
Okay, then great. Well, yeah, well, once we're on the same page, then.
It's not we on the same page. I told you not to do that. I don't know why you're doing that.
Well, all right. So if I add the 15 million plus 2.5 million US, that is your understanding of overruns on this project. So that will come up to
increases in the cost of construction and
right. So 17.5 million.
Hold on a second. Let me tell you what NIDCO has told me in terms of the claims. What they've told me is that because now let me go back to the CEP thing. Now, I don't want to criticize any local consulting firm.
Sure.
I don't. But you need to understand what happened. CEP was the review consultant for NIDCO at the beginning of the project. The contractor did the design, because this is design and construction. And the contractor submitted the designs, and CEP, as NIDCO's oversight consultant or engineering review consultant, approved those designs. Based on that, the contractor went ahead and did the foundations for building A and building B, and then put up the superstructure, the structural steel frame for building A. Okay, building A is the largest building. NIDCO came to its own conclusion based on what it was seeing in terms of changes in the weather and so on, in wind shear, intensity of hurricanes and so on. NIDCO decided that it would review what had been done. Okay? NIDCO then hired other consultants, Aaron Bush, who told NIDCO that the structure approved by CEP was, in his opinion, too flexible. Okay, now this is a steel frame with a glass curtain, they call it. So when NIDCO was told that the structure approved by CEP was told by the specialist, Mr. Aaron Bush, that it was too flexible, NIDCO decided that it would not take any chances. So it engaged KSNP to do another review of the structural design, and as arising from that structural design came an enhanced structure, so that the structural steel that had already been erected for building A was retrofitted to make it stronger, to withstand, more powerful loads and so on, whether earthquake loads or wind loads and so on. And the foundations for building A and for building B, which had already been constructed, NIDCO took a decision to upgrade the foundations of building A and building B. Now, you have to understand that CEP, a highly reputable firm, had already signed off on A structure, A foundation, B structure, B foundation. NIDCO was just of the view that because of the importance of this project, the importance of this building, that the structural integrity should be enhanced, and did so. Now, the contractor is in a contractual relationship with NIDCO. NIDCO hired CEP to review the contractor's design. CEP said design good. So the contractor has no obligation under those circumstances. So NIDCO is of the view, but I don't want to get too much into it because these claims have not been settled. NIDCO is of the view, since CEP had already signed off on the structural steel frame and the foundations, that the contractor will be entitled to some compensation for strengthening the structure. Okay? So contained within that 15 million US is an anticipation that the contractor will make a claim for strengthening building A and the foundations of building A and B. Okay? Now, I asked whether for that reason they did not re-engage CEP. I asked, right, because I'm sure this might come up, because somebody asked me yesterday about CEP being fired. And I had no information on that. My information was that they did the work, the contract came to an end, so on. I've now discovered that yes, they did their work, the contract came to an end, but the amount of money they wanted to continue was much too high. I'm seeing Acritas was hired for 11 million, I'm told CP was twice that. Okay, but that's what I was just told. So that NIDCO decided to go with a firm that was going to charge a more reasonable price. I asked specifically whether there was any dispute with CP over them signing off on the design and the construction, and I was told no. But NIDCO simply wanted to take precautions to make sure that this particular project was built in anticipation of climate change and weather changes and more powerful hurricanes and so on. So the building is now much stronger than it was originally intended to be. It is much more robust than it was originally intended to be. The building codes that the contractor used and the building codes that CP approved, the original design and original construction, are of a lower standard than the building codes that are being used now. I want to repeat that, so that at the end of the day, the building codes and the specifications, far from being substandard specifications that CP was allegedly asked to rubber stamp, it's the opposite. CP had signed off on specifications and construction at a lower standard, and in fact, what's going on now is that the building is being built to a much higher standard. Have I made myself crystal clear? So this allegation about CP being asked to rubber stamp inferior designs is nonsense. It's the entire opposite of that. CP signed off to specs at a lower standard, and NIDCO insisted on specifications of a much higher standard. Just want to make that crystal clear. So go on with your questions, please.
So, go ahead.
Somebody yesterday you dealt specifically with the construction costs, and you said there was an overrun of US 2.5 million, and today you're explaining all the different consultants that were hired and whatnot. Is there like a figure, a total figure, and are these not costs are these anticipated costs or additional costs that were not foreseen? For example, the hiring of WSP and the other firm you mentioned, Gleeds, McDonald. I think you said it was a grant funding for those firms. But in terms of hiring all these different firms, was all of this budgeted already, or is this additional cost?
Some were budgeted and some were not budgeted. The WSP works for the contractor, so that's not the government's cost. That's part of the contractor's cost. McDonald and Gleeds were paid by a grant funding from CAF. Acutus was hired after CEP's contract period expired. Now you have to remember, I just mentioned that the NIDCO has assessed that because of problems with land acquisition, the project was delayed by 290 days. Okay? So over 9 months. And then you had COVID as well. So all of the consultants, the original consultants, would have had consultancy contracts for a particular period of time, especially supervision contracts. And the project has taken much longer than originally anticipated. So that has resulted in the extension of consultancy contracts, extension of the project management contract, and also the cost for additional consultants. So Acutus cost is an additional cost. And the 10 million for NIDCO, the additional 10 million, that's an additional cost. Okay? Have I clarified that?
Yes, and you mentioned that, the contractor has submitted claims for a total of
204 million, yes.
And of that, included in that is like the delay for a 9-month period, which would be about $45 million. Is that at $5 million a month over 9 months?
So I told you that is what was reported at the time.
Right.
Let me get the example. You see, I don't want to get into that because this is not, these claims are being negotiated right now by NIDCO. So I don't want to get into that, the details. What I can tell you is that the contractor put in a claim for delay of 118 million and a claim for 85 million for the enhancements to the design. Because the enhancements to the design required additional aggregate, required additional structural steel, the enhancements to the design that NIDCO decided were necessary, that's 30 million. And the curtain wall, the additional strengthening of the curtain wall, 34 million, so that NIDCO has done its own assessment on what it thinks is appropriate in terms of the strengthening of the structure, and they have not agreed to the contractor's claim of 118 million for delay. But I don't want to get into that because I don't negotiate claims.
I just have one more question. You mentioned in the appendix, the cabinet note, that there's a savings in terms of land acquisition of $50 million. Mm-hmm. Has all the land acquisition been completed to realize the saving of $50 million, or is that still have money still to be paid out?
I understand that there may be another 5 or 10 million. I have that figure somewhere. Go ahead, I'll find it. You go ahead and ask any other question you want to ask me.
So I guess my question is, yesterday when you said...
Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
The expected savings in land acquisition is $46 million at the end of the day. Okay?
Thank you.
Right, so my question is, yesterday when we were going through the list and we have your speaking points from yesterday's briefing, we really focused on an excess of 2.5 million, but now we're seeing that there's more than the 2.5. Why didn't you bring forward the other costs?
Because
yesterday,
all that has been approved by the employer, project manager and consultants, is that $2.5 million US. The claims have not been settled.
Okay.
And as I said, they are in negotiation with the contractor right now on the claims. There's an advance. It may go up, it may go down. Okay? So I don't want to get into that. I don't negotiate claims, and I don't want to compromise the negotiations of the claims. Because I'm sure everything that is being said is being recorded. I don't want to give an opportunity to somebody to make a claim that is unjustified.
Okay.
Okay?
Just 100% clarification. The advance of 15 million, US 15 million has been approved.
Yeah.
And that is to go towards the 204 million.
Yes. But it's not to go towards. Contractors made a claim of 204, and the NIDCO has recommended that we advance the contractor $15 million.
But in all of this, if we bring it all home, you're saying that it's not a $260 million.
Well, I made the point that the 14 million is being added to the other costs, which it should not be.
In terms of the CEP, yesterday you did say that it seemed as though they, I'm paraphrasing, a little over their heads. Nobody had ever built something of this specification before.
Just a second. I have given you a letter written by NIDCO.
I'm
the employer of CEP, deal with that letter. I didn't hire CEP.
Did CEP
and I also did not say anything with respect to CEP the way you are portraying it.
Okay.
What I said was that we hired Leeds and Mott MacDonald because there is no local consultant that can manage a project of this complexity. That was our opinion. I wasn't singling out CEP.
Is it your understanding that CEP had hired their own foreign consultant with that sort of experience?
I remember I didn't hire CEP, and I don't know what's going on with this thing with CEP. I mean, CEP was hired and they were paid.
Right.
Is there some disgruntled person complaining? What I don't understand is where did the story come from? That CEP was fired because it wouldn't rubber stamp defective designs. Where did that allegation come from?
The opposition leader.
I know, but why? Is it that somebody at CEP is unhappy? What's going on? Because my understanding is they had a contract, they were paid, it came to an end, and another consultant was hired. Very straightforward, that happens all the time.
Minister, but why did you take the decision to hire Leeds and Mott MacDonald? Was it because, there were concerns raised, design error and whatnot?
I was looking at the delays. You see, I knew that the delays would inevitably result in a claim. Okay? This project should have been finished in, say, 2023. So I was looking at it, and even with COVID, I can't adjudicate on what would happen with COVID. It all depends on the contract. It all depends on how well a contractor would argue the case for claims for delays because of COVID and cost escalation and so on. So I was concerned because I knew that COVID had slowed the project down significantly, and then also the land acquisition had slowed the project down significantly. So I knew that claims were going to come for delays, and I also was aware that NIDCO had enhanced and improved the design and construction, and the contractor would need to be paid for that. So I felt we needed experts in the ministry, since we have to pay. We have to find the money. I felt we needed experts to advise us.
You mentioned earlier that the experts had double counted the 15 million, I believe it was.
Pardon?
You mentioned earlier that the experts had double.
Oh, sorry, experts. I thought you said experts.
Experts. So would it be accurate then, would the accurate figure be the 261 or 260 minus that 15 million? Would that be a truer picture of the costs?
Depends on how you're counting. Take out the 50 million for land acquisition too.
You said it's still, so...
But I said 46. Take out the 46. It depends on how you're counting. You see, in any project there are construction costs and there are design costs and there are project management costs. And when one gives a cost of a project, it is usually just the construction costs. We don't normally add in the cost of consultants and that sort of thing. So I mean, that's what you are doing. You are looking at the, I can't even say total cost, but you're looking at the, let's use the word overall, and you're adding the cost of the consultants, and you're adding the cost of the variations and the cost of the claims and the original contract, and you come up with a total. So that, and then there's the land acquisition as well. So if we've saved 46 million on land acquisition and we've gone up 20 million on the supervision, well, we still at a saving. Certainly with the claims for delays, that would send the price over the original total, if you want to do it that way.
You mentioned yesterday that the project will be completed by March 2024, at the end of March.
March 31st.
March 31st. So this issue with respect to $204 million in claims from the contractor, do you anticipate that that will be resolved by then?
One of the recommendations coming from the project team with respect to the advance of 15 million for claims was to keep the contractor in funds. So I don't anticipate any issues there, based on the advice given to me by the project team.
Once March 31st rolls around, how much do you think in total the government would have spent on this airport?
And you're asking me to guess. I can tell you right now that the payments made to China Railway total $593 million. And within the original contract, there's still $282 million. The original contract was approximately 875 million Trinidad dollars. That's the original construction contract. They got 593 already. There's 282 million left. Certainly, if you have to go back to what the original provisions were for consultancy, for land acquisition, and so on. And then we're also into the stage of commissioning, because the expert consultant, Zabir, is a commissioning consultant. So that they have to work with the Airports Authority to help them get trained and test and commission the airport. So that's not a cost that would have been catered for at the beginning. So that's a 5 million that really shouldn't be within the total cost. Okay, but I can tell you there's the 15 million US advance, there's the 2.5 million overage on the provisional sums, etc. And then there are the additional consultancy costs. You can do the maths.
That is a problem again. Too much what?
Is there any other transparency I could give you?
I think we're okay for now.
I think the most important thing is to deal with this statement in the Express editorial. To me, that was the most important thing. That I had relied on word of mouth and read from my cell phone with respect to the adequacy of the design. So that's why I brought these documents to give them to you.
It's not a difference. It's not a difference in 2.5 million and what I'm looking at now at 17 million.
I don't listen. That is a question of interpretation. That's a question of interpretation. Okay? I haven't denied anything in any of these documents. So it's a question of interpretation. Okay?
Take it.
Because I think the thing that people would want to be certain of and most concerned about would be the adequacy of the building, the safety of the building. And it is, as you can see, it is going to be built it is being built to the highest international standards, high quality. Okay? So Douglas, you've been very silent. I'm glad. So, any other questions? Ms. Ramdas?
Why did you share all of this information yesterday? It's so comprehensive today. I mean, why not have come with it yesterday?
That's a good question. I went yesterday to speak about what I knew. Okay? You see, I listened to what the reporter said yesterday, and they were talking about a Mott MacDonald report, and it didn't have a date. Well, I looked in the Mott MacDonald report, and it looks like it's January 2024. It in fact is not dated. If you read the first paragraph, you'll see they're referring to site visits in December and in January. So that's a January report, because I do remember that report came in. So that's 10 months ago. Okay? And what Mott MacDonald was doing, my understanding, was that if we don't take the necessary care, if we're not careful, this is what could happen to the project. The reference to failures in specifications and so on, that is completely out of context. That relates to that letter I've given you from NIDCO, when NIDCO was saying that they were of the view that CEP had signed off on a design that was inadequate. You follow?
But to Anna's question, I do want to remind you that a lot of this information that we are getting here.
But hold on, let me go back to Mr. Ramdas. I just wanted to be careful. I could only deal with what I know.
No, that's what I'm getting at, because a lot of what we are looking at here is a cabinet note that you brought.
Yes, but
so you
we
would have known.
don't normally reveal cabinet.
But you would have known.
Yes, but we don't reveal cabinet material. There were no dates, there was no specificity with respect to the questions being thrown at me. And a lot of the information that was thrown at me yesterday was not in the cabinet note. It's just people doing their own calculations and so on, like the 338 million. I looked high and low for that. I couldn't find it, so I had to go and do some arithmetic and add up numbers, and oh, that's where to get that from.
You'd understand that's a little worrying to me, that had we not gotten access to this cabinet note, that we may have never gotten this information.
I'm sure you'll have got it in due course. Remember, this is a live project, it's an active project. We're pushing to have it finished. And nothing is secret in Trinidad and Tobago. This would have eventually come into the public domain.
But is there a need for more ongoing communication, like to give the media regular briefings on these things?
That's a matter of opinion. I felt today, based on what I was reading, it was necessary to have a second press conference. I thought it was appropriate because I was seeing two things. I was seeing a statement that my word was not good enough. So I bring the documents.
Any concerns that you have a leak in cabinet?
Hold on.
These are supposed to be secret.
Let me finish, Mr.
All right, sorry.
If you don't mind. So there was that point, and then the numbers, there was an arithmetical error in the numbers. That's all. Let me go and clear this up. And then I also saw that consultancy costs were being added to construction costs. So different elements of the project are being added, and then the arithmetic is not correct, because in the same cabinet note you're seeing the land acquisition is down by 50 million. So do the thing properly. That was my view. If you're doing it maths, do it properly. Say that construction cost is X, new construction cost is Y, supervision cost was Z, new supervision cost is A, and so on. So I just felt it necessary to clear all of that up. To answer your question, Mr. Douglas, I can't really tell you that. I mean, possibly. I've had 2 press conferences in 2 days. So I thought it was necessary. I think it depends on the case before us.
My other question, concerns about leaks in cabinet. These are supposed to be secret.
Not supposed. I think they would say on the top of it is secret. I have no idea how that got in the public domain. I don't know.
Not concerned about it. The fact that it did.
There's nothing I can do about that. I mean, as I said, nothing is secret in Trinidad. I can't. How am I supposed to deal with that? I can't. So the information is out in the public domain, okay? There's nothing to hide inside of there. I mean, I've come and I've confirmed the numbers, so nobody's hiding anything. Question about leaks in cabinet, I can't really know that. Okay?
There's 4 months to go before the project is completed. Between now and March 1st, do you anticipate any additional costs to come up? I mean, you have 2 reputable consultants on board at the ministry. So have they given, like, okay, this is the clear route? Or do you think that it would be unforeseen?
Well, if you look at the cabinet note, you will see the ministry's position. Put aside $5 million US for any unforeseen risks. And then these are the other things that we know about. So that answers your question. There's a $5 million US that has been set aside to deal with any further unforeseen risks. Okay?
Minister, Ayana Carter, TTT Limited. Will there be any consequences? I don't know how these things work exactly, but will there be any consequences to the Tobago House of Assembly because of the $5 million per day, or is that just part and parcel of doing business?
Well, I estimated $5 million a day, but I'm seeing the contractor claimed $10 million and more, because the let me see exactly what the contractor claimed for that delay. They claimed that they had been delayed 1,127 days. And as a result, they claim 118 million. The preliminary assessment is that they were delayed 290 days. Yes, the Tobago House of Assembly participated in that delay. Yes, they are responsible for some of that claim. I don't think I have any power to do them anything. I just hope that it wouldn't happen again. because we made the point. If you go back into the literature, you would see me saying all along that every month this project is delayed is $5 million. But in terms of consequences, I have no powers to do anything to anybody in the House of Assembly. I don't control that entity. So I don't know what the consequences could be. I hope they learn from this. Because, I mean, it is a legitimate claim that the contractor could not get possession of site. And it's a matter of public record. I mean, in one of these things, let me just read out what the Chief Secretary said. And I really would like to get into any discussion with the Chief Secretary because that leads to all kind of bacchanal. But let me read what he said. And this is from the Trinidad Express, September 11, 2022. We cleared for Compound Project, and this is a direct quote from the Chief Secretary. At a news conference on Thursday, Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, Farley Augusta, said the THA was in support of a request by Crown Point residents for a 6-month extension of their eviction notices. That's $30 million you're talking about.
I think some of these persons land dispute before the court, so that would also be an additional cost. Are there any legal matters with respect to those land disputes?
Not at all. Let me clear that up. We read the whole thing from the Express. The state has scored a victory in dispute with several Crown Point Tobago residents whose lands are to be acquired for the $1.2 billion in our Robinson International Airport. The High Court on Friday, this will be September 11, 2022, dismissed the residents' application for judicial review and an interim injunction to halt the acquisition process, clearing the way for the project to continue. Now remember, this contract was signed in January 2020, and it is only in September 11, 2022 that we were able to get the High Court to determine that we could proceed with all of the land acquisition. All right? Does that answer your question, Mr. Robbins?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is TT